Hello there, and welcome to Find Your Voice, the show where we interview thought leaders and experts from across the globe about their expertise and insights for our wonderful audience. Today, we've got an amazing guest, Ed Strachar. He is a celebrated healer behind Healing Genius and Reading Genius, and he has a background in engineering and has spent his life perfecting the art of helping people overcome their issues and be able to get healed from any of their internal issues and problems. And wonderful to meet you, Ed. Tell us a little bit more about you, and fantastic to have you on board with us.
Joe, thank you. It's an honor. My life now at 65 years old, I've had more turns, spins, and switches than I think most people. And yes, now I heal people around the world via Zoom. And that includes bad knees, bad backs, depression. A lot of people have dark clouds on them and they just think they're down or life is not going good, and they don't realize that they're carrying this dark energy that dampens their love, dampens their happiness, and dampens their positive spin on life. And that's quite common. Um, Previous to that, I've trained many of the fastest readers in the world, and I created something called Reading Genius, where I demonstrated at the U.S. Air Force Academy, teaching the cadets in one day to exceed the Guinness Book of World Records. And that was tested by an independent cadre there at the Air Force Academy. And I've done this all around the world. So, and people say, well, reading faster doesn't mean anything. You got to comprehend. Well, these people could comprehend, and they could stand up and tell you what they read. And the fundamental tenet there, Joe, is that you can't understand better unless you go faster. That's the key, because most people, it's like driving a Ferrari at 5 miles an hour down the highway. You just get bored and you drift off. Okay. That's the way most people read it. They get bored, they drift off, their eyes get tired. And school has no answer to that. The way they taught you in school uses 2% of your brain. I show you how to use the other 98%. And boy, when you do, you have to go faster. And so just imagine having the keys to that Ferrari and now having no speed limit and really using all of those cylinders to go. Now it becomes exciting, it becomes interesting, and you go much faster and enjoy it much better, certainly remember much better. So that's the difference. And then previous to that, I'm an electronics engineer. I invented a chip used in every bomb, tank, and missile in the U.S. and NATO. And what was interesting about that was many lessons were taught, because when I graduated school in the early 80s, it was the forefront of the digital revolution. And I showed engineers twice my age how we could take a pizza box size of electronics and put it into the size of a fingernail. And the resistance and the skepticism that I encountered was quite incredible. And this is from learned people who were in the industry. Well, nowadays you say, duh, second nature, because we see that all over. But back then it was just at the forefront. So I did that, but I had to learn how to endure and counter and counteract, counterattack the skeptics. So when I came out with Reading Genius, which they were skeptical again, I got to apply that there. And that, excuse me. And then when I applied to Healing Genius and started healing people, my first client, a friend of mine, contacted me from the Philippines and said her grandmother has liver cancer. The medicine's not working and it's really expensive. And I said, okay. I was in Florida at the time, as I am now. I said, get a bottle of water. I'll energize the water as you hold it. And I said, give it to grandma when she wakes up, because she was in a near coma. Grandma woke up, walked out of the hospital, and lived for a few more years. I've only done that now a few dozen more times, just in cancer, but also rescuing little kids. We sponsor 2 orphanages, one in Nepal, one in India. We used to sponsor one in the Philippines as well. And that got closed down by their own doing. But, helping these orphans is one of my tasks and missions in life. But understanding how we can heal ourselves with just energy is a bit of a challenge for a lot of people. Most people understand, hey, herbs and And I was just reading some article about how honey and cinnamon have some special medicinal properties. Well, that's fine, but raising and empowering your aura, your life force, your light body, or what some people call your soul, strengthening that is far more powerful than any herb you could take. Okay, literally. And no one has ever learned how to do it. And I teach it.
Ed, that's fantastic. And that's an amazing transition from going from an engineering background to getting this chip made for NATO and the Air Forces and all of that to going into the healing space. So how did you discover your talents, and how has everyone got these talents, and how did you able to harness them to start helping people? Where did that transition come from?
Well, yeah. So after working in the corporate world for a bit, my boss and I had a falling out. And I knew he was right. I knew I was right, but as you learn when you're going up against authority, knowing you're right is not always the answer. And so we had a falling out, and this is before the internet, 1989, 90. The Berlin Wall was just coming down, and I grabbed a backpack, put all my stuff in storage, had a friend watch my car, and I took off for a year, and I backpacked across Europe.
Right.
And I spent 6 months in Western Europe and 6 months in Eastern Europe, Czechoslovakia. And then I took a train to Russia or the Soviet Union. And I had been there once before. And that was revelational. And I stayed with a friend who lived in downtown Moscow, right near the central chess club of the Soviet Union, which was the best and most elite chess club on the planet. And I went there and I started learning with the grandmasters and fraternizing with all the old men. It was quite an event. I was 30 years old at the time. And so chess is all about focus and brain power. When I came back, my neighbor was over having tea, and I was telling about our experience, and he was a school teacher, and he was complaining that the kids didn't want to read the books they had. And he was teaching in 8th grade in San Jose, California, Silicon Valley, where I used to live,
Right.
20-so years. And I laughed. I said, yeah, that's why I studied engineering. And those were the two subjects I could study that had the least amount of reading. And he said, but I said to him, knowing some principles and knowing what I had just learned over there, I said, invite me in. I'd like to try some things. And he did. We had kids reading books in 5 and 10 minutes and standing up and telling you what they read. And they were excited. And we used, I know this is probably radical. You may even shut me down. They may even call the ethics board, to shut you down for having me on. But we use this radical thing in the classroom called music. Okay. And music got the kids excited. We were doing exercises to music, reading exercises to music, and not just, sitting in the, no, we were doing physical exercises and exercises that turned on your brain power. Well, how do you turn on your brain power? Well, just like the way you turn on your muscle power, you overwhelm the muscle. So now we turned the book upside down with one eye open and turned those pages as fast as we could. And then we grabbed a pen and wrote down what we remembered. Okay, now the first time they didn't do so well, but after 4 or 5 times, it started getting better. And we implemented mental training. We implemented music. We implemented physical exercises.
Wow.
We interrupted the self-defeating inner voice that said, oh, I can't do this. I'm no good at this. All those things that people really degrade their own ability within. And we had to interrupt that, and interrupt it we did. To where when you turn the book right side up and went with both eyes open, wow, this is easy. And then you only go half as fast. So these kids were reading like this.
Wow.
Totally focused and zoned in. To where I had 4 classes that day, and the principal and all the directors of the reading department and vice presidents and vice principals came and just witnessed, and they just watched. They couldn't believe how well these kids were doing. That was
Amazing.
my first test. Yeah, well, long story short, I soon made it to the Air Force Academy in caught wind. I started teaching at corporations in around the Silicon Valley, corporations like Hewlett Packard, National Semiconductor, and Xerox. And then the Air Force Academy, once the Air Force Academy uh, saw these results, well, then West Point wanted it. And
Mm.
then once West Point wanted it, well, in Naval Postgraduate School in Monterey, which wasn't too far from there, also wanted it. So I demonstrated it there. And then I've taught a lot in Australia, New Zealand, and England as well.
Amazing. That's amazing. So tell us about the treatment when it comes to under the sun. It says here on our questions for chronic pain. So when you say the body can relearn health, how does that process actually look in practice?
Well, obviously, it depends on, that's a real general question that I can only give a general answer. Everything says it depends.
Yeah.
Did they just get in a fight? Were they just hit in the head with a hammer? Or they just don't feel that good? Are they taking drugs? Are they eating bad food? Are they eating chips and lots of sugar? What are
Mm.
they doing to themselves? Because what we know, Joe, is perfect health is the natural state. Perfect health is natural state. If you don't have perfect health, it's because something is interfering with your natural state. Now, there could be bad diet, obvious. Could
Yeah.
be bad habits, whether it's bad sitting positions or you're always arguing with your neighbors or family members or spouse, or it could be that you have dark energies on you.
Mm.
And dark energies are the thing that most people don't consider. They can't be seen by most people. And that's the thing that doctors can't treat. And this is where the danger is. Now they call it mental health problems, suicidal thoughts, things that often happen when people get involved in drugs and alcohol, and or even if they watch a lot of TV and horror movies, it weakens their aura. And when the aura gets weak, and the aura, your energy field is a protective energy field. It's part
Right.
of your light body. And when that gets weak, we become susceptible. So one of the most profound things that someone can do to improve their health, improve their strength, is to build up their light body and their strength. And that I could teach them in about a half an hour. Okay, it's not hard, but you have to, just like brushing your teeth or putting on your shoes, you have to make an effort to learn. And
Mm.
it's no harder than putting on your shoes or brushing your teeth, but you have to do it. So increasing the strength of your light body has a powerful effect. And you may even want to share when I demonstrated this to you
Yeah, for sure.
in a virtual station. What was your experience of that?
Yeah, for sure. No, I was going to say to the audience about that. Ed and I had a meeting about it, and he did his work on me, and I felt incredible afterwards. And obviously, going into that state of meditation with Ed, and just feeling when my eyes were closed, I could still see lights. And Ed, as you said, there was some kind of dark energy around me in some way, maybe from something, as you mentioned, we had a conversation before about drinking, times you've been out drinking a lot, and you've met the wrong people, and you can be susceptible to dark energies that can attach themselves on. And since I've had that treatment with you, I feel incredible. I felt so light afterwards, and for some
Well,
reason I went out to the balcony. I'm here in Vietnam, and I've got an apartment overlooking the sea, and I just stood there and just watched the sea for like, I don't know, 20 minutes or so. It was amazing, and
mhm.
I just got into this kind of state. I felt like I was on mushrooms or something. I really felt very calm, very chilled, and just absorbed into the
Well,
environment. And yeah, after
sure.
that, since then, I've been sleeping better. I felt more positive. I haven't been stressing as much about things. And yeah, I just feel like a literal weight's been lifted. So thank you for that. And
Uh,
I highly recommend
you're welcome.
people listening. It's
Yeah,
incredible.
and that was 5 or 10 minutes, and you were in Vietnam, and I was in Florida.
Yeah.
So distance doesn't matter. And if you had the recording of that session, you could listen to it a year from now, or tomorrow, or
Mm.
10 years from now. You could still get the same effect because we're operating at a dimension above space and time. which very few people can operate at, but those that can heal powerfully at a distance. We can purify water. So if you wanted your tap water purified, we do that. Okay, we can change the quanta molecular structure of things. We can energize things. And when I say things, energize organs. I've healed many bad knees, for example. And, football coaches, well, how do you heal a knee over Zoom? And I say, very simple, coach. I said, you're conditioned to think you have to cut it open, take a tendon from some poor cat, tie it in there, sew it up, and then do lots of rehab. There's a better way. Okay, that knee has a spirit. And when that knee gets injured, like in football, it gets impacted. The spirit of that knee, the light body of that knee also gets impacted and corrupted. Well, if we heal the light body, if we heal the spirit of that knee and we energize it, the knee knows how to repair itself. Now, I warn you, there's no money in it for Big Pharma when I talk like this.
Yeah.
And I'm not suicidal. So if you find me floating in the river after I say this, don't ever think it was self-induced. Okay? But this is why that's not out there.
Yeah.
Not because it doesn't work. Now, this is the way the ancient Greeks healed. This is the way the ancient Chinese healed. Okay? And the native peoples. Okay, they didn't do ACL and MCL surgery in a year of rehab. And so you take your average player who's generally pretty fit to begin with, and they have a knee injury, and they're out for a year, I'll bring them back in less than a month. Okay, even if they have their surgery. They can have their surgery, I'll bring back less than a month.
Yeah.
Okay, we can accelerate rehab significantly because I'm working with the infinite power of the universe. Doctors are working with drugs and scalpels. That degrades, and then you hope the person can come back, and sometimes they do.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't.
So that's incredible. It really is. And I think also with the mental health aspect, there's a lot of people suffering with stress, anxiety, depression. And I think I feel that this could be wonderful for them, and able to be able to kind of go through this. And yeah.
For sure. And look, I cringe when I watch some experts, whether they be psychotherapists or coaches or what have you, and they tell you depression is part of the brain, or if you take this herb, that herb is not going to clear dark energy. Okay? No pill will. You can clear dark energy just with your own heart and soul. Okay? Now, I'm not talking about the heart that pumps blood. I'm talking about the one that pumps love. But most people's heart, Joe, is blocked up. They have anger, sadness, breakups, and so forth. So that's blocked up. But when you unblock it and you can pump love, and you can pump love around you, you can build your aura, build your strength. You can clear this darkness, just like clearing smoke out of the room by opening the window, So it's a very powerful effect. And I simply call it the love expansion method, and that's what it is. And it's a really powerful thing to do, and it's something that everyone, I think, should learn. In fact, if you go to my Healing Genius page and click look under free stuff, we'll send you a free love expansion recording so you can learn to do that for yourself.
Wow, that's great. I was going to ask that question. How would people be able to figure this out, whether they do have dark energy or not? So what's the website, Ed, for that? Exactly the website URL.
HealingGenius.com.
HealingGenius.com.
HealingGenius.com. Simple as that.
Great.
And just click under free stuff and a love expansion method, and pass it around to your friends. You don't need permission. And it's something that's very potent. And we have a lot of things that can really help people heal by connecting to the infinite power of the universe.
Yeah, that's amazing.
No herbs, no non-herbs, no mantras, no religion, just pure what I'll call spiritual physics. Okay? Just by pure love. Love is what heals. The masters knew that. In fact, the word Jesus, name Jesus, means teacher of love. Okay? And that's what he taught. Love is what heals. And there are dimensions to it. Okay? So there's levels of power. Most people only know the lowest levels. When you reach the highest levels, as you did in that little session, amazing things happen. Amazing clarity can come about. And feeling really good is one of the better effects of it.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. And also I'm interested to know, we spoke a little bit before, what can people avoid in life to not attract dark energy to them? What would be the main things you would recommend for people to stay away from?
Well, stay away from the news. Okay. The places that thrive on dark energy, um, police stations, schools,
Really?
hospitals are the worst. Yes. And seminaries have quite a bit as well. Why? Because, well, thieves go after rich people, they don't go after poor people. So those who are trying to be enlightened, okay, the dark spirits are going to go right after that. And, in hospitals, you got sick people, so you got all these dark spirits. And then you have the governance of the hospital that is not trying to heal anyone. They're trying to prolong, and they're applying quote unquote pharmacy. And the word pharmacy comes from the Greek word pharmakia, which means to apply witchcraft, which means they give you something for your liver, but it may damage your kidneys. And you take something for your kidneys, and then it hinders your stomach. And on the cycle goes. Okay? They're not interested in having you healed and walking out. There's no money in that.
Right.
That's not
Of
good for their
course.
business, and they know that. But most people are under the delusion that the doctor's there to heal them. He's not. He's a salesman for the pharmaceutical industry, and if he recommends something outside the pharmaceutical industry, well, he can lose his license, he or she.
Yeah.
And they've been indoctrinated to think, what we do is quackery. Yeah. Well, I'll challenge you right here. I'll challenge the entire Stanford medical community, entire Harvard, Princeton, Oxford, Colgate, against me. Let's take a group of six sick people somewhere in the world. I'll have a half an hour with them, and they can have a half an hour over Zoom, and all their knowledge can be applied and see the effect. And then we'll see the effect of what I do in half an hour with those people. And by the way, they don't have to speak English. They just have to pay attention. We'll have a translator, and I'll apply the energy from the infinite universe, clear their darkness, energize their organs, reinvigorate their love. And what are they going to do? Tell them about the side effects of all the drugs that they're going to send over? Well,
Yeah.
no, we got a half an hour. I'll challenge any medical system.
Okay.
Anyone, one-on-one. Let's go. Put $1 million up. Put 20 million bucks
I
up.
believe your conviction, sir. I think that's a fair challenge. Yeah, interesting. Interesting one. So I'm curious. Just a quick thing about, you mentioned about schools, so that I want to touch upon that, because that could be quite a. So when you say avoid schools, why would the dark energy be attached to the schools?
Well, schools, unfortunately, are pretty dark. Many kids nowadays are coming from broken homes. They're inundated with mass media, most of which is dark. They're inundated with junk food and bad habits, which is self-degrading, self-condemning. And oftentimes they come from homes that aren't filled with love, life, and light, or they come from homes that think they're following the right way because they have this thing called religion, and that's even worse, because a false teaching, waiting for a savior that's going to save you, is one of the biggest lies out there, and they're following the lie. So while they may think they're on the right path, they really are clueless. And so this hampers a lot. So you go into schools in general can be pretty dark. And then if you go to private schools, I'll tell you a story. I demonstrated reading genius at a private school. And this was what they considered a progressive school in the Silicon Valley. The headmaster had a son in the 8th grade with reading problems, who was eager to come in and see what I could do with his son and the other 20 kids in the room. So we got there, we're doing our exercises, upside down with one eye open and doing reading and mental training exercises to music and so forth. And by the end, his son said, wow, he goes, when you read fast, you understand it much better. You stay more focused. It's so much easier to understand. I said, exactly. Okay, every kid in that room finished a book in 15 minutes. Some finished it in 5 minutes. Books at their level that he chose for them. And they took a test and proved that their comprehension actually went up. Okay, as opposed to when they came in. Well, he calls me in the back of the room, Joe. And he says, Ed, great course. This is brilliant. But there's no way we could take this course into our school. And I said, okay, why not? He says, Ed, I've got a budget of 10 books per year per kid. With your course, they'll finish that in the first month.
Yeah.
And he says, I know what you'd say, Ed. Give them the 9th grade books, right? For 8th graders. Give them the 9th grade books next month. Ed, what do I do when they get to the 9th grade? Okay, this is what he's telling me. Then he says, Ed, I've got 4 reading teachers on staff. They're women that are 10, 15, 20 years outside of school. They're not going to put mental training exercise to music and show people how to really build their brain power. They're trained in their ways. What do I do? Fire them? He goes, there's no way I could take your system on. So it was really at that point that I decided to bring it to the public. And so those who want to learn, those who want to get a free lesson, go to readinggenius.com and you get a free lesson. You show just how powerful things are when you learn to turn your brain power on, how powerful you are, and how easy reading can really be.
That's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing. Well, just another quick segment going back to the school. So that's interesting. So obviously police stations, hospitals. So would you say that people working in these, because there's going to be people listening to this that may be a nurse or a doctor, or they might be, a police officer. So how do they need to be careful? Like, what is the protocol you would recommend for people who work around these places?
Yeah, most nurses, they confide in me. They nod their head. They say, you're exactly right. Okay, but if I say anything, I'll get fired, So, all these whispers. Police station, it's pretty obvious. Dealing with criminals and drunks and drug addicts and so forth all the time.
Yeah.
The thing that they can do, like I said, is they can build up their own aura. They can tap into the heart that pumps love and pump love around them. So no matter how much darkness is there, and in Jesus' case, he could walk through the leper colony and not be infected. Well, you can do that when you have a strong aura, when you have a strong light body. And you create a strong light body without any herbs, any books, any religions or anything. You can just learn to do that. And I show people how to do that, and it's called love expansion. So, this is possible for all of us, Joe.
Love expansion. That sounds great. Fantastic. Well, Ed, this has been fascinating, and I'm sure people are going to learn a lot from listening to this, and it's going to open up people's minds to learn more. And I think this is very important for humanity at the stage we're at. There's a lot of negativity going on, especially online, and everyone's got access to dark energy through one of these things. They're constantly scrolling, and I'm guilty of it, which I'm trying my best to avoid it. And it's,
That's a vehicle, though. That's like a car. It's a vehicle. It doesn't have to be dark. You get an email from a nice, positive friend. That's not dark.
Yeah.
If you, watch the coming attractions to the next horror movie, it's dark. If you watch the politicians that come on there talking about lying or war, or, killing and maiming people, or they're just lying to you okay. So there's choice there. For sure there's choice. But you can clean up. We all get dirty. We learn to take showers. We all get sticky stuff on our teeth. We learn to brush our teeth. Learning to clean your energy field is something we never learn, and it's probably one of the most important skills for adults, far more important than good sleep, which is super important, far more important than managing your finances, which is super important, far more important than being harmonious with the people around you, which is super important. But more important than that is keeping a clean energy field so you're not perturbed or disturbed in any unnatural way.
So just to quickly summarize and finish off on that note then, Ed, so what recommendation would you do to keep a clean energy field? Is there like a practice in the morning? Is it something that you get people to do before bed? What's their kind of what they need to do for that?
Joe, you could do this going up an elevator. You could do it driving. You don't have to go sit in a temple and wear white. You can shave your head, although it looks like I have, but I haven't. That's just natural. Um, you, in a nutshell, you feel your love and learn to expand it in a still mind, a still mental state, right? Most people will try to use their mind to expand their love. It's not about using your mind. You have to use your heart to expand your love. And again, we're not talking about the heart that pumps blood. We're talking about the one that pumps love. And few people have learned to really use that heart. To give you an example, I remember not so long ago, I was driving 80 miles an hour at night with an assistant, and a former girlfriend of mine messages me. She says she's in a mental health institution. Her grandfather died. And after her grandfather died, her whole life went south.
Right.
And this was a very stable, intelligent girl. And so while I'm driving, I said, okay, let's do a healing. I gave my assistant I verbalized the instructions for her to type in. This girl was in Asia, like you are. She was in Asia. She followed the instructions, just breathing on account and so forth. And I could heal her while I'm driving. My eyes and hands are focused on the road, but my heart is sending the love and doing what I do to heal. And she felt her energy field come clean, and she checked out of the institution the next day. That's
Wow.
possible.
Incredible.
Yes. So, and here's a question for you. Why did the grandfather's death trigger her demise? This is a fascinating tenet of energy,
Yeah.
because, energy is never created nor destroyed. So when someone we love, quote unquote, passes on, well, their energy doesn't just go up in smoke. It goes to whoever they have energy cords to, whoever they have connections to.
Right.
There could be children, grandchildren, spouses, and so forth. Well, so she got a big dose of her grandfather's issues, and not by asking, just because she was, a kid to him. So with that,
Wow.
she didn't know how to clean up that energy. Well, that's what I helped her with. And
Interesting.
she was diluted with that dark energy, and they said she has mental health issues. And they're feeding her drugs. And drugs don't help that stuff. It just makes you dumber. It makes you desensitized to it, but it does not heal in any shape, way, or form.
Interesting. Yeah,
They
they've
know
also got side effects that can cause even more depression and shut off the
that. Well,
serotonin and yeah.
some of the side effects. We talk about pharma being witchcraft. Okay, some of the side effects, those drugs are designed to open up windows, energy windows, to let demons in. That's why suicide is one of the side effects of antidepressants, because they're designed to open up energy windows that let demons in. When demons come in and they try to get someone to accelerate self-destructive habits, whether it be cigarettes, alcohol, drugs, suicide, porno, gambling, and so forth. So that's what some of those drugs actually do. That's how wicked that industry is.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Interesting take. Well, Ed, look, this has been a great conversation. I think, people need to. So let's remind our audience again the two websites that you want people to go to for their knowledge on this sort of stuff.
Readinggenius.com and healinggenius.com. I'm Ed Strachar, and thank you for watching.
Yeah, thank you, Ed. I appreciate it. And thank you for everybody for tuning in, and much appreciate your time. Take care. Speak soon.
Much love. Thank you, Joe.